Yo, peace was good. Welcome to the installment of Hop Rants. This is part 13. Uh, there's a topic that I want to talk about that's been kind of pissing me off and it's been bothering me, and it is based on the old head versus the younger head. So the older generation and the younger generation that butt heads. I've been noticing a trend nowadays. I mean, it's been going on for years, but as of late on the social media, about the younger heads always talking shit about the older heads, saying like how the older heads are always hating on the younger people and this and that and the third. And here's my take on that. Um, I feel like both are at fault. You know what I mean? Because I feel like the younger generation, I feel like they know what they know, and as well as the older heads. But I feel like when the older heads try to reach out to the younger heads see it as preaching or preaching, and they can't really comprehend the way they go about, like, their approach. I guess it's all about their approach, and which is why you know they butt heads because they're both from different generations, but at the end of the day, to me, what it's all about making good music. Like, for example, like I've been seeing a lot of shit like where it says they'll say like, oh, well, what's my called? They'll say shit like, oh, um, the older heads, they're stuck in the '90s, and they need to evolve, which I fucking hate. And when people say evolve, in my opinion, evolve in today's time is you fucking making pop music or making trap music, or adapting it to what's popular now. That to me is what people's perspectives of today is evolve. My opinion, evolve in my opinion should be something that you experiment, but it's still a part of you, and as long as it's dope. I think people get shit twisted when it comes to these evolution shit, because if you're 40 something years old, you making trap music, something's wrong with that. That's like me going to a club, and that's like me being 50 years old. You go into a club with a whole bunch of 20-year olds trying to have these young girls and shit. Like, dude, like, at your age. I mean, yeah, you probably do it because maybe the sex is better with younger people or whatever, but I mean, come on, like, you need to grow up and act your age. And that's what kills me when these younger cats be saying like, oh, um, these dudes, like, they're stuck in the '90s, and all they do is boom bap and shit like that. And to a certain extent, yes and no, because my thing is, you could do whatever kind of music you want to do. It's just as long as it sounds good. That's my thing. Um, it's funny because I had a discussion with one of my mans on Facebook, my MC Doja, which I did a couple of songs with. We're supposed to come out with an album sometime next year. We've been working on music and stuff like that. Let me just get a swig of juice. Ah, excuse me. And was Sprite actually. And he said something that kind of struck a nerve to me when he said that Foxy Brown can't rap. Like, she has no flows and she's whack and that kind of thing. So I kind of, and then a couple other people, say, nah, you bugging, and this and that, and then he was arguing, like, he was kind of going back and forth. So I had to say my piece. I'm like, dude, like, yo, Foxy's nice. She's dope. You know, especially being around Biggie, Jay Z, DMX, AZ in the '90s, you had to be nice. You know what I mean? And yes, Nas, AZ, and Jay wrote her lyrics during the 099 era, but she was dope with it. She was nice. You know what I mean? She could spit and things like that. And I feel like she proved a point on her third album, Broken Silence, where she pretty much had everything done on her own. But on her first album, she had help, but she was dope with it. You know what I'm saying? And and he was saying like, oh, she can't flow, and like the beats were whack because of the whole track masters thing. And my thing is that, yo, people are so stuck when it comes to the track masters. they only focus on the shit that they did in the mid to late '90s, not realizing that they did shit in the early '90s as well. People tend to forget that Trackmasters did shit for Chubb Rock, Nas. Well, obviously what they was written. Yeah, Chubb Rock, Nas, Big Daddy Kane, LL Cool J. Who else? Pudgy the Fat Bastard on his first album. Coogee Rap. Uh, Red Hot Lover Tone, which Red Hot Lover tone of Trackmasters. So if you guys like Red Hot Love, Red Hot Lover Tone's material, then you like Trackmasters stuff because he's one half of Trackmasters, Tone and Poke. Red Hot Lover Tone, get it? Among other people that they did in the early '90s, but people tend to forget that they only focus on, what they did, with the Nas, It Was Written album, and the Foxy Brown album, which isn't as bad as people make it out to be. Yeah, some of the beats do have like that, where they were sampling like 80 R&B, 80 R&B pop singles and stuff like that, things like that. Yeah, but compared to the shit that's out now today, I would rather listen to that than some of this fucking mumble trap bullshit that's out too. And I just feel like the direction of hip hop today is not good, and the younger generation are not helping the situation either by going back and forth with the older heads, and the older heads are at fault too because you got older heads that try to evolve by trying to do this trap shit just to try to appease to the younger generation. It always seems like with hip hop, it's always that we always gotta kiss people's asses. We gotta be people pleasers, and that to me is a bad look on the culture itself because you will not see that in any other culture. Like you will never see fucking YouTube trying to make fucking songs for the young people. Nah, they make music for everybody, but it's still them. You'll never see fucking Marilyn Manson making fucking music for the younger people. Nah, he makes music for him and his core audience, and then they're not worried about. Yeah, they would like to. Their thing is with their music is that they try to please their core audience, and whoever catches on, that's great for them. That's how I got from that. That's what I get from their music. It's just even with like Metallica and Slayer and all these death metal bands and black metal, whatever, they don't try to please. They don't try to please everybody. You know what I mean? Because their whole shit was kind of like fuck the industry. We're gonna keep doing us. You know what I mean? And I feel like with hip hop, we're just such a sensitive culture that we have to please everybody now. And I've kind of noticed like now, and then there's a lot of younger people, the millennials, which I would be considered a millennial because of my age, and they will say like, oh, there's dope MCs. We have dope MCs for our age. Hey, you're right. There are dope MCs. There are dope MCs from the 2000s and the 2000 teens and things like that. There is good music out now, and he was right. Not everything in the 90s was dope. You're right. And then his thing was, and then Doja, he was just saying about how he had to know. Well, he was just saying like how just cause it came out in '96 doesn't mean it was dope. And then she was doing the whole mafioso thing, and I said to him like, I like the. He was just saying like, I can't believe you actually like that album. Like we were arguing. I'm like, dude, I like it because it sounds dope. You know what I mean? And I gave the example about how people was complaining about Prodigy and Coogee Rap talking about the gangster shit. But my thing is that again, it goes back to what I said. If it sounds dope, it sounds dope. As long as you do it ill, I'm good with that. And that's pretty much what I said about Prodigy and Coogee Rap. And I told him about the Trackmasters early stuff and things like that. And then we just kind of said like, yo, we're gonna agree to disagree. But it just kind of shows you people not knowing their history, and that's no shots to Doja, but there's a lot of other people too that don't really know the history of certain things, and that's why like I do this channel to kind of put people on to good music regardless of the era. That's why like I know a lot of the CDs I show are from the '90s is because I'm trying to expose those albums to people because I feel like those albums will never get exposed on a worldwide um on a worldwide level, and which is why YouTube is universal, and I have this platform is why I show those albums so I can put people on to good music regardless of the year that it came out. You know what I mean? And then when and the thing is too that the older heads we need to stop. We need to stop downing the younger people because at one point the older heads were young too, because you had people from the older generation, excuse me, dissing them. You know what I mean? I'll give you a prime example. When gangster rap came out back in the '80s, in the mid '80s, you had all these political figures and activists, condemning them in public, steamrolling their cassettes and CDs and records and stuff like that. So at one point they were young too. So we gotta stop playing, stop being hypocritical and stop, downing the younger generation. Because at least there are some dope MCs that's young, that's actually dope of today. You know what I mean? But, but, but nowadays the subject matter that they talk about is bullshit. They just talk about, fucking women, taking drugs, and it's coming to the point where the majority of the songs have, like, they're trying to make niggas look like trying to become drug addicts, and I'm not with that because in my profession I work at, I deal with drug addicts every day, and with the music out today, you're starting to see that now. And that's the shit that I'm not really feeling today. And that's where, a lot of the older heads and the younger generation clash because, the younger generation today have no respect for nothing. They just do what the fuck they want and nobody checks them. And it's crazy because when an older head checks somebody, a younger guy, they're looked as a hater and, oh, you a hater, you're not relevant, which I fucking hate that word relevant because, people don't think of, people only think of it of an American standpoint. It's all about a worldwide thing, you know what I mean? At the end of the day. So by us bashing each other, it's just not helping the culture, like I said. You know what I mean? And it's funny because a lot of younger cats want to bash the older heads. Oh, you're stuck in the '90s, but these are the same niggas that rock high top fades, go to fucking thrift stores and buying old ass Tommy Hilfiger clothing for like '94, '95, which is nothing wrong with that because I do the same thing. I mean, this is old polo, this is like from the '90s and stuff. I do that shit too, but don't be a hypocrite and where you wearing clothes that the old heads used to rock when they were younger, but then yet you wanna have the nerve to say that you're stuck in the '90s and stuff like that, and you're wearing, some of the hairstyle they did rock back in the day. So let's not play devil's advocate. But the older heads, y'all complain about the music being whack. Some of y'all need to start putting out better music too. You know what I'm saying? Y'all need to start, practice what you preach. Okay, the music that the young niggas are putting out, cool, they're whack, cool. Then you need to put out dope music because this is a couple of artists from my well, not my generation, but like that I grew up in my era where I grew up in the '90s are putting out garbage. They're not putting out good music. They're putting like subpar music. You know what I'm saying? Prime example, Rakim, when the last time he put out was the Seventh Seal back in 2009. That was a horrendous album. That album was garbage, and it's because he was trying to appease to the masses. He was trying to get people like Mano and a couple other cats. The album was like all over the place. I just wasn't really digging that album. Same thing goes for De La Soul's new album, The Anonymous Nobodies. I wasn't really feeling that album because, they were trying to, appease to the masses. They're trying to do like all this crazy experimentation with the album, you know, just them trying to, appease to the, to the masses, like by, just, getting a couple of new artists out. I mean, not collaborating with certain artists like Two Chains and a couple of other people, and it was just like, yo, what are you doing? Like, that's not who we know you as. You know what I mean? We don't know. We know De La Soul from, the early '90s, the late '80s, early '90s to the mid '90s, and stuff like that. And they can't necessarily blame their label because, they that album they did themselves. They had like a Kickstarter account where they did a Kickstarter account, and they would, they would raise up money to fund the album. So they did it themselves. It was independent. So you can't blame the record label because they're not under no record label. As from what I understand, they're independent. So that's them. You know what I mean? And that album was, to me, it was whack. It was okay. It just wasn't that good. And again, it goes back to cats trying to fit into the new shit, to into the new generation, trying to adapt, trying to evolve. But not everybody not everybody could experiment. Like, it just doesn't sound right. Common tried doing that. A couple other people tried doing it. It didn't work. I think the only people, as far as like evolution and trying to experiment, I think the best people that did it, in my opinion, was people like the Outkast, like Andre 3000. Even though I'm not the biggest Outkast fan, I'm a fan of their early stuff. ATLiens, Southern Playlist of Cadillac Music, Aquamanine and stuff like that. If you notice, every album sounds different. It doesn't sound the same. You know what I mean? It sounds different, but it was still them. You know what I'm saying? But same thing with Mobb Deep. I'm a big Mobb Deep fan. Their music doesn't sound the same each album. So to me, that's another form of evolution or progression, if you want to call it that. My thing is, I'm all for evolution, but if it sounds dope, it sounds dope. And if it's done right, then I'm all for it. But don't be on some shit that, oh, we can't, we're not allowing people to grow because we're keeping them in the box. Later for that shit, because if the shit is whack, the shit is whack. Let's not play this bullshit game where it seems like with hip hop we're not allowed to criticize. We're not allowed to call people on their shit. You know what I'm saying? Nah, nigga, your shit is whack. Regardless of what year you came out, I judge people based on what they put out now. Not what they did back in the '90s and '80s. That was cool. We like that. We like shit. I judge people based on their current stuff or what they're doing. You see what I'm saying? So that's just my thing. But my whole thing with the whole generation gap is that I think we should all find a medium where we can collab, but at the same time don't compromise our art. That's my thing with that. You know what I'm saying? Again, like this whole bashing, oh, he's old, he's young and shit like that. It's not helping. It's not helping the culture, like I said. And even though a lot of shit that's out that's whack nowadays, here's my thing with that. At least they're not out doing crime. They're not out stealing people. Robbing people, killing people, and stuff like that. At least they're not doing that. That's how I look at it. Yeah, let them make the whack music they want to make, but just let them do them. And the younger heads, let the older heads be them. You know what I'm saying? Just keep doing you. That's what I always tell people that. You know what I mean? You just tune out. Just keep doing you. Just stay in your lane. Everybody stay in their lane. And I think life would be a lot better. Yes, the older heads could guide the younger people, but it's up to the younger heads to actually want to learn the stuff. I think the younger heads need to learn their history. You know what I'm saying? But you have to want it, because I feel like a lot of times you got people that just want to become overnight sensations, and it doesn't work that way, man. It does not fucking work. It takes hard work and dedication, and and it comes to say what I'm saying is that right now is the best time to be in the hip hop game, but I feel like the I feel like the younger generation now. Someone got left. The younger generation now, they have more. They have much more of an advantage than the older heads did back when they first came out. And the reason being is because what you have to understand is that not in the '90s it was a lot more harder to get a deal. Um, they weren't business savvy as people are now. Which the younger heads, they have the internet. They can do. They have YouTube. They have SoundCloud and my Reverb Nation and all that shit and all that. The older heads, they didn't have that. The older heads, they had to make cassette tapes and they had to make duplicates and send to different record labels and things like that. Then you had to deal with sample clearances and all that shit, things like that. Now, nowadays, like, people have so much of an advantage now. It's so much easier. All that hard work that the older has did, they made it easier for everybody now to endure. And I think people don't see it that way. But then I think with the older heads, I think that the older heads need to stop condemning the younger people. They're just doing them, just like how you guys were young at one point. Y'all were doing you. You know what I'm saying? And if it's whack, it's whack. They had whack shit in the '90s and '80s. Like, I didn't care for Kid and Play. I didn't care for Redhead Kingpin. I didn't care for X Clan. You know what I mean? I respect the contribution that they did for hip hop, but I just didn't care for their music like that. You know what I mean? I didn't care for Mike Geronimo's second album, Vendetta. I've mentioned that before. When you got these artists trying to follow the Biggie route, and it just didn't work for them. Doing like the whole Trackmaster sounding kind of beats, the Bad Boy Syndrome. It just didn't work, and that was because of the record labels too that dictating them to do that. And now I'm gonna get back with the whole Nas thing. Let me get some drink. A lot of people condemning Nas where it was written because of the whole Trackmasters thing. I mean, there were some joints that they did that were dope. Like, they did The Message, they did Street Dreams. They did, I think, Shootouts. I think they did Shootouts. Affirmative Action. I mean, they did a couple joints, and that shit was dope. I didn't care for If I Ruled the World. I didn't really care for that song. I don't, to this day, I can't stand that song. But it's just. But I'm just saying, just like, each one teach one is my thing. You know what I mean? We could learn from each other, and that's pretty much it. I'm just rambling. We just gotta stop this whole bashing each other, because like I said, it's not helping the culture. I just wish the younger heads would learn their fucking history, and before they start talking shit. The older heads, y'all need to start putting out better music and start teaching the younger, guided people. But at the same time, if they don't want to be guided, leave them be. It's like you could send the horse to drink the water, but it's up to the horse to drink that water. That's my whole thing with that. And with that being said, I'm gonna leave it at that. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Stay tuned for more. Leave comments if you guys agree, disagree. If you agree, that's cool. If you disagree, that's cool. Comment. But keep it respectful. Alright? So, hope you guys enjoyed that. Peace.